All right. Hello, everybody. Going to give us just 30 more seconds before we get started here. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Miranda Powell. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Experlogix. While I'm new to the role, I've actually been at the company for about 3.5 years or so, helping run and manage our marketing program. But as we moved into 2025, we really wanted to put more of an emphasis on the partner channel. So I'm kind of using my, talents as a marketeer to help enable you guys as partners with better training, resources, collateral, or any type of co-marketing campaigns you're wanting to run. This is the first of my webinar series, so I'm wanting to do this on about a bi-monthly basis. So keep your eyes peeled for emails as those are rolling out. And then at the end of this webinar, I also want to do a quick poll just to see what you guys would be interested in kind of covering during the next webinar. I'm joined today by Jeff Hallway, our VP of Sales. He's here more or less to provide air cover for me in case there's any questions come up that I can't answer. Jeff's been at the organization for just 20 years. I think we celebrated his anniversary last week. So happy to have him on board. And I'm sure he's a familiar face to a few of you guys that are attending this webinar today. All right, so in terms of the agenda for today's webinar, first kind of want to go over, why the CPQ conversation matters more than ever, changes in the enterprise technology landscape, acquisitions that have taken place with other CPQ companies. Then I want to help enable you guys as partners. So when you're selling against some of these ERPs or CRMs that have a native CPQ functionality, what are some of their drawbacks? What are some of the things that Experlogix plus Dynamics does better so that you can speak to that during some of your conversations? We'll quickly go over things to listen for during discovery. That would be a good cue for CPQ. And then last, how to leverage our expertise, why you should work with Experlogix, and how we can help you win more business. All right. So why the CPQ conversation matters more than ever. So as a lot of you guys may be aware, most other CRM or ERP providers have acquired a CPQ solution. And, as a effect of that, they try to sell it with every deal where it makes sense. So if you think of SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, again, they all have a baked in CPQ solution. And this leaves Dynamics partners with a gap to fill when it comes to CPQ. Another reason outside of just the changes in the competitive landscape and winning more deals, many companies, are really still doing the majority of their sales process outside of the CRM or ERP, which is hindering adoption rates. So if you think about, an organization that's using spreadsheets, they're going in there, they're finding the right information, and then they're keying in CRM or ERP, or keying in that information into the CRM or ERP. And I know you guys as partners, you're not really trying to sell an interface, right? You're trying to sell a solution that helps guide the sales process. So one of the other benefits of CPQ helps bring the sales process back into the CRM or ERP so people don't have to jump around to different systems, and you can mitigate the risk of people keying in things wrong or manual entry errors. All right, so just a quick overview and what's kind of happened in the CPQ technology landscape. Over the past 10 years, as you guys will see illustrated by our timeline here, there's been a lot of acquisitions of CPQ companies. So starting in 2013, Infor acquired TDCI at the same time that Oracle had acquired Big Machines. A couple of years later, Salesforce went ahead and acquired SteelBrick. SAP acquired, and I know I said this wrong earlier, Jeff, but Calidus Software. Did I get that one right? Calidus.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
Okay,
That's right.
cool.
Yeah.
2021, Epicor acquires KB Max. 2022, NetSuite acquires Verinia's CPQ business. And then most recently, like kind of outside of the CRM or ERP landscape, is ServiceNow as an ITSM company acquiring Logic.io. So again, a lot of these enterprise technology platforms see the need for CPQ, see the value that it could add to their technology, again, in terms of bringing the sales process back into the core technology systems and out of, spreadsheets and disparate systems and, more or less trying to break down these knowledge silos that exist at a lot of enterprise organizations. Next, we're going to go into positioning against competitors. So I'm going to first start off with F&O and CE based competitors, and then our next slide will be some of the competitors that you might come up against when you're selling Business Central. So I'm going to go ahead and take it from the top here with Salesforce. Another thing that some people may or may not be aware of is Salesforce CPQ has actually just announced its end of sale on the solution. So from a timing perspective or from a messaging perspective, if you guys are going head to head with Salesforce, CPQ is approaching end of sale. And honestly, the writing has been on the walls for some time now. They've stopped developing the product. There's been less and less support. So people who are in the Salesforce CPQ ecosystem are feeling a lot of that pain right now. And on top of that, before the announcement of end of sale, there was always a high cost and effort associated with maintaining the solution. So you do need a developer to build out any new rules, products, so on and so forth. And kind of going back to the acquisition of SteelBrick by Salesforce, SteelBrick went to market as the easy to use, lightweight CPQ. So when it comes to more complex quoting operations, or even looking to scale their business, whether that's through acquisitions or, just broadening their sales team, the solution isn't really designed to scale with the organizations like that. Additionally, there's a high total cost of ownership. So beyond the licensing fees and additional cost for implementation, there's going to be cost for customization, cost to maintain support, cost to keep on a developer to continue to build this out. One other note too, just on the Salesforce CPQ approaching its end of sale, the goal or Salesforce at this point is really all in on their Revenue Cloud solution. So they're going to be required, they're all in on Revenue Cloud. CPQ is going to be a part of Revenue Cloud, but there's no migration path from Salesforce CPQ to Revenue Cloud. So this will be a full, total reinstall, and the cost is about $200 per user per month. So again, very cost prohibitive and probably a lot more than people need if they're just looking for a CPQ solution. Next is SAP. So it's interesting. I've actually been working with a lot of partners who sell Dynamics and SAP, and there's recently been this interest in getting better training on Experlogix because of the challenges that they've had maintaining SAP's CPQ solution. So we're in this position where they're like, I would rather not sell SAP if they're going to need a CPQ. And so that's why they're looking at Dynamics and the different ISVs that exist for CPQ in this space. SAP CPQ has a high degree of implementation complexity. Pricing is also an issue, not necessarily the cost of the solution, that is pretty expensive, but also if you're an organization or a client that has complex discount structures, price lists, different tiers for pricing, SAP CPQ has a pretty hard time managing more complex pricing systems. And then there's also performance concerns. So users have reported that the system can be slow at times, affecting their overall efficiency. And then they're limited by the amount of customizations that they can make, which can obviously cause some challenges internally at the organization, or, worst case situation, people kind of fall back to what they know and start using the spreadsheets again and aren't really utilizing the CPQ that they had purchased. Last on kind of the enterprise or F&O CE competitors is going to be Oracle. So again, they acquired Big Machines. Big Machines is kind of known for having a little bit more of a clunky user interface. It's often described as outdated or complex, slows down a lot of the workflows and navigations. There's inconsistent customer support, so it's often hard for somebody to find the right person to talk to, or if they're in some of those conversations, they've oftentimes found them to be unhelpful in resolving their issue. And again, similar to SAP, there are going to be limited customization options. Moving into competitors that you guys might see more in the Business Central realm. So we'll start with Epicor. One of the main things that you'll see if you're kind of scrolling through review platforms or software review sites, as I've been doing, kind of prepping for this webinar, you're going to see this recurring theme of multi-user authoring conflicts. So essentially, the platform doesn't allow for two people to be editing, code at the same time. That leads to overwrites and it limits their collaboration. At the same time, there's no built-in functionality for non-admin users to view or even, take over unsubmitted quotes from other users. So again, it's very siloed from a quote generation perspective, not a lot of means of collaboration, and even implementing workflows as it relates to discounting or engineering proposals or requests is pretty challenging. Last but not least is just their CAD automation or anything regarding 3D requires a heavy amount of customizations and coding in order to get correct, and then is pretty prone to breaking even once it's live. Next is going to be Infor. So Infor, a lot of users have noted a lack of in-depth reporting features, making it hard to analyze their sales data or identify areas for improvement. Experlogix CPQ writes everything back into Business Central or F&O so that you can build really amazing Power BI reports looking at, how often was a single line item, quoted, or what is the most commonly purchased product across all of my opportunities. You're able to do that again through the integration of Experlogix with a Dynamics ERP or CRM. The interface is also a little bit clunkier. It's outdated, hinders navigation. And then similar to some of the other solutions we've reviewed, there's been, performance bugs and a noticeable kind of instability once you're in the platform. The other thing that I'll say in regards to these two is that they're really just an ERP, kind of focused CPQ. They have like a CRM type of add-on, but the amazing thing about Experlogix CPQ is that we can integrate to CE and to either F&O or Business Central. So it's a true front office to back office solution, unlike the two of these, which really tend to be more focused on the back office and aren't as geared towards, salespeople and people who would be typically interacting in a CRM. Last but not least is going to be NetSuite. So NetSuite, this one's interesting because Experlogix, we used to have an integration with NetSuite. We sunsetted that about a year ago. And when I was in marketing, we did our best to scrub everything saying or mentioning NetSuite from our website. And we still will have, either customers or partners reaching out to us, be like, hey, can you guys still do NetSuite CPQ for NetSuite? Because apparently NetSuite CPQ is very lacking. Again, we've tried to make ourselves invisible in this technology space, but people are still trickling in. One of the things that we'll hear pretty often, or when we were having discovery calls with people related to their challenges using NetSuite CPQ, is really going to be in the rules and logic functionality. So it's difficult to set up, and then sometimes it doesn't work the way that it was initially designed. There's also a very steep learning curve. So users will often face challenges navigating the system and require very significant training programs in order to utilize its full capability. So again, just another cost that you would be incurring in terms of training, in addition to some of the subscription and implementation costs, which we've heard can be pretty high, again, combined with customizations, implementation costs, so on and so forth. All right. So all of this is essentially to say, when you're going into discovery with a prospect or with a client, keeping your ears out for the right thing is very important, because if you're going head to head with another ERP or CRM platform, their team is trained on selling CPQ. They probably have a small set of questions that they will use to kind of probe the customer and see if there's opportunity. And I'm not expecting any of our partners to go in with a full script of questions to ask in terms of CPQ. Honestly, a lot of the things that you'll see pop up on the screen in just a minute will come up organically as a means of you just asking, what does your quoting process look like today? And you might get a variety of different answers. Some of these might be a little bit more intuitive. If somebody says they have a really complex quoting process, or the pricing for their products or solution is complex, typically a green light for CPQ. But some of them are a little bit more of a tangential pain point, or they might not necessarily scream CPQ to a partner. But for example, struggling to onboard our sales team quickly. Again, like not something that you would initially think, oh, CPQ could help solve that. But again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, we do have a guided selling module that again dummy proofs the sales process. So there's no way that they can quote something that manufacturing or services can't deliver on. Another really good one from here is, in terms of building a use case for CPQ with your customers, asking them how much money they're leaking in the manufacturing process due to errors that happened during the quoting or sales process. We were actually talking with a partner recently. Partner came to one of our sales directors. They're like, hey, I think this organization needs CPQ, but they're pretty cost sensitive. I want to build a business case for them and really be able to establish what the potential ROI of this implementation would be. And so our sales director had asked this partner, it's like, hey, ask them how much money they're leaving on the table or how much money they're spending on manufacturing errors. And he was like, okay, let me, go back to the client. I'm not sure what that answer is. He came back to our sales director and he said that is $500,000 a year that they are losing in their manufacturing process. So again, CPQ pays for itself and then some in a lot of these situations. That's not uncommon for us to hear. Usually it's a number somewhere between, 50,000 and I guess upwards of $500,000 a year that they're losing out on, again, just because of inaccuracies in the quoting process. Having visibility into what our dealers are doing, that's a huge one for CPQ. And one of our differentiators in this space is we actually have the ability to let dealers and people outside of the internal sales team use the configurator, build a quote, and then you can even set up rules or logic that if a dealer, builds a quote or puts together a quote over 50,000, it'll flag the sales director in that territory so that they can collaborate on closing the business together. So giving your dealers the autonomy while also ensuring that, there's opportunity for collaboration. You're still getting that visibility. We have a lot of partners who will kind of chunk out their pipeline in terms of their dealer pipeline versus their internal sales pipeline, and then their customer pipeline as well for customer portal use cases. So that's another great use case for CPQ. You have customers that are doing repeat orders, configuring a lot of the same, parts or machines. They would be able just to use CPQ or Experlogix CPQ and do that very easily. I am going to jump on from this slide, but I will be sharing with you guys as a takeaway from this webinar, our Qs for CPQ one-pager. It has a lot of these challenges, but it also has the, kind of value that Experlogix is able to deliver or how we're able to solve those challenges so that when a customer is saying, hey, tribal knowledge is holding us back from growth, you're not just like, okay, cool, you need CPQ. You have something to say that's a little bit more specific to the challenge that they are facing today. All right, I'm going to wrap this up and then ideally leave a few minutes for some Q&A, if there is any. So first of all, in terms of leveraging our expertise, been in the CPQ space for over 25 years now. When you guys are going to head with some of these other technology platforms, that's one thing they are not going to have. They might have acquired another CPQ technology, but they didn't acquire that core, team from a knowledge perspective. Again, I mentioned Jeff Hallway is on this call today. He's been at the organization for 20 years, and you'll see that as a pretty common theme across a lot of the Experlogix leadership and across a lot of our product development and product management team. So work with us. Again, you can leverage our expertise while still driving the sales process on your own, just plugging us in really where you need us. Best-in-class integration to Dynamics. So we have an integration framework that's called Cloud Connect. It is a bi-directional low-code, no-code integration framework. And I remember when I was in marketing, I would meet with our head of product and, ask like, hey, what is our true differentiator? Like everybody does rules and logic, everybody does pricing calculators, so on and so forth. And I remember him telling me it's Cloud Connect. It's our integration to Dynamics. Like that is our differentiator. In the back of my head at that point, I was like, well, that's not very sexy. Like, how do I market that we're really good at integration? But now that I've been in the sales role or more on the sales team, I've seen firsthand us win deals over other competitors purely because of the integration with Dynamics and how much information we're able to pull and then also write back into the system. We have a low-code, no-code admin portal. So again, as we were reviewing a lot of those competitors and what, some people were saying from a negative review perspective, a lot of it had to do with how complex it was to customize or needing a developer or somebody who knows code to be able to add in new products or new rules. That's not the case with Experlogix. So we have a low-code, no-code admin portal. Our solution is built on the same syntax as Excel to make the rule and formula process that much easier. And again, makes it easy for you guys as partners to potentially be able to step in and help your clients manage their CPQ instance past implementation. So some of you guys probably know us, or I would hope that by this point in the webinar, you know us as CPQ. But Experlogix, we actually have 3 different solutions. And they're all really geared around streamlining sales processes. So we have CPQ. We also have document automation, which is, really good for the proposal aspect of the sales or configuration process, but also has a tremendous amount of use cases where it's able to stand on its own, whether that's, invoicing or renewals or contracts, whatever it might be. Document automation can help generate those documents in just a couple of clicks out of CRM or ERP. And then we also have a digital commerce solution. So anything for B2B e-commerce, let's say you use CPQ for the initial, product configuration on a complex machine. You can use digital commerce to then sell spare parts. This is a lot of what powers our dealer portal and customer portal functionality as well. And then even having mobile apps for sales reps who sell on the go. So easiest way of kind of framing it is if you're thinking about sales within Dynamics, we probably have a solution for you. And then I talked about the low code, no code, ease of use on the admin portal, but it's also just as intuitive and easy on the user side as well. I talked a little bit earlier about guided selling and how it takes you through that process without any room or opportunity for errors. We've seen people be able to scale their sales teams 2 times faster and have a new sales rep, be proficient at quoting, at selling, just as well as one of their most seasoned veterans would be. And last but certainly not least is there's more training and service opportunities for partners at Experlogix than ever before. So if you guys want to get to a point where you're, selling and demoing Experlogix, if you want to get to a point where you're able to manage a project or share hours with our services team during implementation, or even get to a point where you're doing everything from the initial, implementation to, managing the solution and building out any customizations for them later on. There's trainings, there's pathways for that. So feel free to reach out to me and we will get you the information that you need in order to get that process started. I will see if there's any questions based on any of the information that I shared. I will be sharing this presentation with everybody who registered as well. And if you guys don't have any questions for me, I do have a question queued up for you. So I'll give it a couple of minutes. Jeff and Caitlin, I can't see the questions, so if there are any, just read them out.
I'll say no questions right now.
Okay. Do you want to queue up the poll really quickly, Caitlin? So I want to make sure that we're talking about the right things whenever we're doing these types of webinars. So Caitlin is going to drop a poll in the chat in terms of what you guys would be interested in covering during one of our next calls. We can talk about CPQ add-ons, so 3D visualization, dealer portals, document automation. We could do a deeper dive into the CPQ architecture and the Cloud Connect integration framework that I had talked about during the call as well. Or we could do a deeper dive on how to become a services certified partner for CPQ. So any and all responses are welcome, and I appreciate everybody joining today. And again, as a takeaway, I will be sending over the Qs for CPQ one-pager. I'm also going to send over a pretty in-depth feature breakdown between Experlogix CPQ and Salesforce CPQ. Again, the timing is kind of right. We're trying to strike while the iron is hot here. For people that are either considering Salesforce CPQ or already on Salesforce CPQ, especially if they already have F&O as their back-end ERP solution. That's a great sweet spot for us that a lot of other organizations aren't able to do as well. So again, reach out. We're happy to cover the topics that you guys are most interested in learning about. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Thank you.